All right, so warp levels for humanity. Have you heard about this?
I have, yeah.
It's a pretty wild idea. We're diving into this article by Matthias Sundin. He calls himself an angry optimist. I like that.
Yeah, good energy.
And he's basically saying, like, what if instead of just letting progress happen, we set a bar collectively for humanity to reach?
Yeah, it's kind of like instead of just letting the future unfold, how do we actually shape the future? And he uses this really interesting analogy in the article talking about, like, imagine a high jumper trying to break records without a physical bar to aim for.
Right.
How do you even know if you're doing better than you were before?
Yeah, it'd just be chaos, people jumping all over the place.
Yeah, and you wouldn't even know what better looks like. You'd have no target to shoot for. And that's his whole point, that humanity needs that same clear target, that shared understanding of success,
Right.
to really kind of, I think, accelerate our efforts and push ourselves further.
Yeah. It's kind of like, if you think about the space race,
Yeah.
having that very concrete goal, land a man on the moon by the end of the decade, that really, it focuses everyone's efforts.
Absolutely.
And we saw such amazing technological advancement in such a short period of time because of it.
Right.
So it's like we need that same kind of space race energy, but for like everything.
Yeah.
So these warp levels, as he calls them, it's like each level is we've achieved a certain set of milestones as a species.
You got it.
Like we've leveled up as a whole.
Okay, now Sundin doesn't claim to have all the answers for what those levels should be, or like
Yeah.
the specifics. In fact, he uses ChatGPT to draft some examples, which I thought was interesting, if not a little, optimistic, given that AI still has some learning to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think the point is to spark discussion, to get people thinking about it.
Yeah.
What would a truly leveled up future look like?
Right. And to get that conversation going.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we're sketching out a blueprint. It might need revisions. We'll figure it out as we go along. But having that initial vision, I think that's crucial.
Right. To even know where to start.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, he doesn't just throw out this idea of warp levels. He actually then goes into detail about, like, well, what are the potential benefits of actually implementing a system like this?
Yeah. And he paints a pretty rosy picture, I got to say.
He does.
Increased future-focused thinking, global cooperation on a whole new level. It's almost like he's saying that this is the answer to, all of humanity's problems.
Yeah.
Which, may be a little idealistic, but I don't know. What do you think? Is there something to that?
I mean, there's a real sense of, like, we can achieve anything if we set our minds to it. And I get that, Some folks might roll their eyes at that. But think about it. We already use these systems to kind of measure societal progress, the Human Development Index, the Social Progress Index. These are imperfect tools, but they give us benchmarks, and they give us a shared understanding of, like, where we stand and what we should be striving for. So these warp levels could almost be like a kind of supercharged version of that, with goals that are ambitious enough to really, like, get us moving.
Right. And I think where it gets really interesting and where Sundin really wants to kind of push the conversation is, okay, but how do we go about actually defining these levels?
Right.
And who decides what better even means?
Yeah, that's a big one. Who gets to decide that?
And what about, like, the potential downsides?
Right.
Are there unintended consequences of aiming for a goal that maybe we don't fully understand the implications of?
Yeah, it feels like there's so much room for error there, like for bias to creep in, even if it's unintentional.
Absolutely. And to be fair to Sundin, he doesn't shy away from that. Yeah. He acknowledges that there are potential pitfalls. He talks about the need for, like, open dialogue and careful consideration. He really sees this whole warp level idea as kind of a starting point, a catalyst for discussion and debate.
So more of a thought experiment than a, like, ready to implement plan.
In a way, yes. But a thought experiment, I think, with very real world implications. He challenges us to consider, like, what kind of future do we want to create? Yeah. Like, if we could collectively level up humanity, what would that look like? Right. What would that actually look like?
It's a big, big question. Yeah. But I like that he's putting it out there. It's easy to get so caught up in just, like, the day-to-day.
Yeah.
And feel like we're just along for the ride, But this idea that we can actually, like, steer things as a species collectively towards something better.
Yeah.
I don't know. I find that kind of empowering in a way.
Totally. And he doesn't just leave it as like a philosophical debate.
Yeah.
Like, okay, that's a nice thought, but what do we do with it?
Right, right.
He actually lays out some concrete steps
Yeah.
for how we might actually start building this warp level system.
So less pie in the sky and more like, here's how we might actually get this off the ground.
Exactly. He talks about starting small, like with pilot projects or,
Yeah.
focused working groups to kind of test out the concept, work out the kinks.
Right.
But the key, I think, is to start. To start building some momentum, to show that this isn't just like some far-fetched idea,
Right.
but something that we can actually tangibly work towards.
Yeah, I like that. It's that blend of like, think big, but also start small. That I think makes it really compelling because honestly, like, the world's problems sometimes feel so huge.
Sure.
It's easy to get discouraged and just kind of throw your hands up in the air. But, he's basically saying like, yeah, it's big, but we can totally tackle it together, one step at a time.
And that's a really empowering message, don't you think?
Yeah.
It reminds me of that old saying, like, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Right.
Maybe defining, like, humanity's next level seems daunting.
Yeah.
But every journey starts somewhere, right?
It makes you wonder, what would my personal warp level look like?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Like what's an achievement, big or small? That would feel like, okay, I've leveled up in my own life in some way. That's something I'm going to be chewing on for sure.
Me too. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a great place to leave it then, with a question, a challenge,
A
spark of possibility.
I like that.
So for everyone listening, if you're as intrigued by this warp levels idea as we are, go check out Sundin's article. It's a real thought provoker. And who knows, maybe your ideas will be the ones that help shape humanity's next big leap forward.
Wow.
So until next time, keep exploring, keep asking those big questions, and keep leveling up.
That's it. Yeah.